Hi, hello there. My name is Alizadeh, and I'm going to present the second clip on this YouTube channel, which is, of course, as you know, the YouTube channel for the paperback bookstore. Now, I am a writer, an academic, a reader, and a friend of the paperback bookstore in Melbourne, and I'm very, very happy to have this opportunity to share with you a book that I think you would really enjoy reading, given the current circumstances where we're all, self-isolated and so on. The book is the 1954 classic I Am Legend by the American author Richard Matheson. Now, this is an homage to the great book about loneliness and isolation, the great novel about loneliness and isolation, which is, of course, Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe, as you would recall, was stuck on a desert island. The hero of Richard Matheson's book is self-isolated, stuck, confined to his own home, with all the windows boarded up, in a future in which all humans, as far as he knows, have either died or have turned into vampires. Okay, so as you can see the cover, here we have scary looking things with fangs. Yes, it is a horror novel, and of course I understand that many members of the paperback bookstore community may not be the lovers of the horror genre. That's okay. I am, and I hope to be able to convert some of you today, especially if you would see a book like this and go, oh, not for me. Well, I want to compel you that it is exactly for you. It is a seriously brilliant literary work. And of course, you would probably recognize the title, I Am Legend, from one of its few film adaptations. There's been 3 movies made based on this novel. The first one was actually scripted by Richard Matheson himself, and it starred the great American horror actor Vincent Price. I think it's a pretty good movie, but it's clearly not a genuine horror classic, not in the way that this novel is. The other adaptations of this book are sadly better known, and they're utterly dreadful. There may be a few scenes that are watchable in the Charlton Heston movie Omega Man from the 1970s, but that's just about it. And the more recent film with Will Smith playing Robert Neville, the sole survivalist hero of this novel. That movie, with utterly dreadful CGI and utterly unscary and laughable vampires, is clearly nowhere near as good as the book itself. So, I just want to say this. If you are thinking, well, why should I read this book? I don't like vampires in fiction or, frankly, in real life. Neither do I, and they may or may not or may exist. I have no idea. But what makes this an excellent book in general, and particularly now, if you just want to put your head down, lose yourself in a fictional but not utterly escapist universe. You want to read a book that grabs you, but you want to think about, well, some of the issues that matter while you're being grabbed by an excellent narrative, while your senses and emotions are being fully engaged in the fictional universe to the point that you literally cannot put this down, then, well, this is the book for you. Even if you don't have a great love for vampires, or if you don't believe that they exist. And in fact, Robert Neville, the hero of this book, doesn't believe they exist either. However, he sees that they're everywhere. He has to isolate himself in his home because every night the vampires come and they want to eat him. so okay, here are things that his mind cannot compute. What the hell are they doing there? I don't want to give away anything else about this book, especially its mind-blowing ending. I have to say, this book must have one of the greatest endings in the history of literature. Suffice it to say that it does end with this sentence, I am legend, but how we get there, or what it even means, I'll leave that up to you. I say this as somebody who writes literary novels, has had to read tons of literary books, and I can assure you it's, well, is better than just about all of them in terms of its plot structure and this kick in the gut, mind-blowing ending that is philosophical, will stay with you for as long as you live. I can guarantee that even if you're a vampire and you live forever, it will stay with you. So if you, after today, decide to get yourself a copy of this from the paperback and read it, and you get to the end, and the ending does not knock you out, send me an email and threaten me by with putting a stake through my heart and saying I want my money back. I will return your money back to you. This is not a legal statement. I'm being hyperbolic. No, I will probably just apologize for misleading you. But this is an amazing book. Very briefly, though, as you can see, it's published as part of the wonderful series of sci-fi masterworks, which is put out by Orion Publishing in the UK. Hang on, I just said it's a horror novel. Is it also a sci-fi? Well, of course. If you know your history of great horror novels, and who doesn't, you know about Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you know that these two genres, and also crime fiction, are sort of like born together out of the Anglophone, primarily Anglophone, but not solely English-speaking, literary universe, and they're kind of born together like a triplet. And at various times, I guess one genre has been more prominent than the others. Horror novels, and I hope to talk to you about some more horror novels in the coming clips on this YouTube channel. Horror novels had their heyday in the 1970s, especially in America, and we'll talk about some of the masterpieces of that period, like The Exorcist, Ghost Story, and things like that. But yes, this novel is also science fiction. It is set in the future, which for Matheson writing in 1954, the future that he predicted was something in the 1980s and 90s, because according to him in 1975, this great plague, yes, a pandemic, takes over the world, which gradually starts turning people who have died from it into vampires who return. And Matheson, the character Neville, is the only human left who has not been contaminated and who wants to understand how he can cure these vampires. And I will not say anything more about this wonderful book, and I hope you will read it. What I want to read to you now is a little section of it, which is, I think, pretty brilliant. Cheers. And I think that it is a flashback. That the story takes place at a time where Neville is confined in his house with tons of alcohol, records of classical music, and lots of ammunition, and frozen food in his freezer. He's prepared for the lockdown, and he's there. Every day he goes out to find more food, and at night he comes and barricades himself and tries to fight off the vampires who are trying to get in to eat him. Yeah, it's realist fiction. However, this section that I'm going to read to you is a flashback to when his own wife, his beloved wife Virginia, dies of the contagion. He has gone and buried her using the car, borrowing the car of his neighbor Ben, and then he's returned home after burying Virginia. And this is what Richard experiences after this. He lay fully clothed on his bed, staring at the black ceiling. He was half drunk, and the darkness spun with fireflies. His right arm faltered out for the table. His hand brushed the bottle over, and he jerked out clawing fingers too late. Then he relaxed and lay there in the still of night, listening to the whiskey gargle out of the bottle mouth and spread across the floor. His unkempt hair rustled on the pillow as he looked toward the clock. 2 a.m. 2 days since he'd buried her. 2 eyes looking at the clock, 2 ears picking up the hum of its electric chronology. two lips pressed together, two hands lying on the bed. He tried to rid himself of the concept, but everything in the world seemed suddenly to have dropped into a pit of duality, victim to a system of twos. Two people dead, two beds in the room, two windows, two bureaus, two rugs, two hearts that. His chest filled with night air, held, then pushed it out and sank abruptly. 2 days, 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 feet. He sat up and dropped his legs over the edge of the bed. His feet landed in the puddle of whiskey, and he felt it soaking through his socks. A cold breeze was rattling the window blinds. He stared at the blackness. What's left? He asked himself. What's left anyway? Wearily he stood up and stumbled into the bathroom, leaving wet tracks behind him. He threw water into his face and fumbled for the towel. What's left? He stood suddenly rigid in the cold blackness. Someone was turning the knob on the front door. He felt a chill move up the back of his neck, and his scalp began prickling. It's Ben, the neighbor, he heard his mind offering. He's come for the car keys. The towel slipped from his fingers, and he heard it swish down onto the tiles. His body twitched. A fist thudded against the door, strengthless, as if it had fallen against the wood. He moved into the living room slowly, his heartbeat thudding heavily. The door rattled as another fist thudded against it weakly. He felt himself twitch at the sound. What's the matter, he thought. The door is open. From the open window, a cold breeze blew across his face. The darkness drew him to the door. Who? He murmured, unable to go on. His hand recoiled from the doorknob as it turned under his fingers. With one step, he backed into the wall and stood there, breathing harshly, his widened eyes staring. Nothing happened. He stood there holding himself rigidly. Then his breath was snuffed. Someone was mumbling on the porch, muttering words he could not hear. He braced himself. Then, with a lunge, he jerked open the door and let the moonlight in. He couldn't even scream. He just stood rooted to the spot, staring dumbly at Virginia. Robert, she said. Wow, there you go. Voted the greatest vampire novel of the 20th century by people who cast these votes. Something that Matheson himself found a little bit ridiculous, but there you have it. Wonderful book. Hope you enjoy reading it. Let me know what you think if you read it. And I look forward to presenting another great scary novel next time. Stay safe. Bye.